This is Beyond Perception, where it's all about breaking out of a limited understanding, a limited perception of life, and waking up to our human nature, our true self, and to our connectedness with all life. I am Simon, and I have the true pleasure to be here today with Paul. Paul is educating the public about common law and the legal system, and also is creating an education platform for public servants, as well as a community based in truth and understanding, upholding universal law. He recently recorded and published quite an unusual encounter with the police, which kind of went viral. And also, that's something hopefully we will learn about more today. So it's a true pleasure to have you here. Thank you, Paul.
Sure thing, Simon. It's good to be here.
Yeah, so as just basically that's how I bumped into you. I've been watching this video. You probably know which video I'm talking about. Just a few days ago, where you recorded an interaction with the police, and the police stopping you, checking in on you while you were driving with your car. So the listeners might say, so what? Yeah. However, you were traveling without license, registration, insurance, any tax, and the thing you were allowed to continue your travel. So as a start, can you maybe just quickly take our listeners through that situation? Like, what happened?
So yeah, I mean, I was moving my property from point A to point B, as we say, and no license, registration, insurance plates. At some point going forward, because I don't really take my property out much on the road, I will probably get a bond with the state, just so that if anything does happen, if I accidentally hit somebody or anything like that, they will be covered, right? It's like a way to do insurance without doing insurance, the conventional way. You do it with a bond. So I'm probably gonna do that at some point. But yeah, I mean, they pulled me over, it's typical. It's not typical for men acting as officers to see people without plates. So they assume or presume certain things, and they stopped me, and we, had a back and forth, and I explained to them, what the law was and what the rights were in this country. And we had a pretty good, back and forth, and they understood where I was coming from. And, they let me continue on my way without any charges. So.
Yeah, and I think most of the listeners here, they might have heard about this topic a little bit, common law. That's what you're educating about, and what you're also referring to here, right? When you talk about law and rights, what is the biggest misconception here? To most of the people.
Well, one of them is the idea that statutes, policies, codes, and procedures are laws, right? Statutes, policies, codes, and procedures are not laws. They're given the force of law through the consent of the governed, right? So if you're not consenting to be governed, these are not laws. It's all contractual, right? It's all based on certain agreements that you make, certain contracts that we usually unknowingly sign. And yeah, it's pretty much a big misconception that legal and lawful are the same thing, right? One is a corporate process, one is a commercial process, one is the law of the land. So many people oftentimes find themselves in court believing that they broke the law, when in fact they have violated, quote unquote, a policy or procedure which only applies to members of a corporation, right? Man and woman are only subject to law. And that obviously is universal law, which comes down in the form of the common law, LORE, which we then get the term common law, and then it comes down through constitutional, right? Because the Constitution is basically codified universal law. Things such as all men and women are created equal, right? So no agent or agency can ever be elevated above a man or woman, because all men and women in this realm are created equal. As a matter of fact, a public servant is beneath man and woman because they've been given certain duties, obligations, and responsibilities to serve the man and woman who created them. So that's another big misconception, right? The idea that police, policy enforcement, somehow have a status above the men and women who they're supposed to be serving.
Yeah, that makes intuitively a lot of sense. And when I remember that conversation, and I have a little bit of context to this topic, but when I listened, when I was watching the video, your recording of that situation, it seemed almost that you were talking a different language than the police. So how like how can one understand where you are, like at which jurisdiction you are right now? So if you're in a contractual situation, or if you're speaking as a man and claiming your rights, you also speak of your property instead of a car or vehicle. Like, so it seems that like to each jurisdiction there is a language to it.
Yeah, I mean, to a degree, but jurisdiction, from my understanding, has a couple different connotations. The Latin really just means to say the law, right? Jus juris, and then diction is to say the law.
Mhm.
Um, Also, the jurisdiction connotation is control, right? Who has jurisdiction over me, or control? Well, nobody ever has jurisdiction over me other than me, right? Even if I'm put in a jail cell, tied up, wrapped up, I'm still the only one, de facto, indeed, who can control me, right? So the idea of saying the law or controlling other people is obviously an illegitimate understanding. There is no legitimacy to it. However, there are certain language, as you were pointing out, there are certain language mistakes that we make that allows them to make the case. Again, I don't necessarily believe it's legitimate, but in court on paper, they will say, well, the individual says XYZ, so he must understand the agreement that we're all under here, right? So it's just really about whittling down your language to a point where there's not much ability, if any, to twist words, right? Like, my property is my property. There's no way to twist that. If I start saying, well, my car, my automobile, my motor carriage, they start playing with it and twisting with it. My property is my property. It's mine. It's for my express usage. Nobody else can administrate my property, right? So
And I believe you were also explaining that driving means being in a commercial activity or moving goods or something. I don't know exact definition you kind of said, but I believe you also were referring to a law dictionary, right? So somewhere there are like meanings to words defined, and depending on how we use those words, we're kind of implicitly agreeing into consenting into having a contractual situation with, for example, the police or any authority.
sure. I mean, when you get into the word operator, right? We talk about a crane operator, a forklift operator. They're using title words that you use when you're contracting, right? Like, they talk about a contractor, a construction worker. Well, they're going to have certain people on the job who are going to operate heavy equipment. So when they stop you, they're going to tell you, well, you're operating a motor vehicle, right? Motor vehicle, again, is another commercial term. If you go into, forget about the Black's Law Dictionary or Bouvier's or any of that. If you go into United States Federal Code, right, their own codes, it will define in there what a motor vehicle is. And it defines a motor vehicle as, and I'm paraphrasing here, but any horse-drawn or motorized carriage that is used on the public roadways in the act of commercial activity, right, doing commerce. So then what we have there is the term driver that goes along with motor vehicle. The term driver is anyone who is employed by somebody else in conducting a carriage or a motor vehicle. So there again, we have employed, commercial, connotation, not even connotation, expressly stated directly that driving a motor vehicle, two words in there, denote commerce, doing commercial activity, right? So most people, that's the biggest misunderstanding when it comes to moving property is, well, I'm driving this car. Well, if you're not a tractor trailer driver, bus driver, taxi driver, somebody who's employed by somebody else to move property or goods on the roadways, you're not a driver, right?
But then, like for example, someone who's new to this thing but gets it, yeah, like I'm above the government, they are my public servants. Yes, I totally agree to that. So it's really about investigating the law situation, learning about language, the twisted, distorted meaning of the words we're using, or what like how can one get one's head around this topic and understand like how this is working and all the different contractual situations we probably already have without really knowing that they exist until we know. But how can we know what like what was your process to that? What how did you get into this knowledge?
Well, I always usually when people ask me, what was a big influence or somebody who I've learned a lot from, I always mention Carl Lenz, right? Um, Lentz, and then the name is Carl, Karl. He was a big influence on me and kind of just hammering home a lot of the common sense levels to it, right? Because the more we talk about this stuff and break it down, they've created a whole reality that we live in, but it's really just common sense fundamentals. But, it's a kind of a lifelong journey and process. It starts to become a lifestyle once you become aware of the fact that, on the common sense level, well, who in this realm has the right to tell me what to do or not to do when I am responsible for my morality, right? I have a perception, I have feelings, I have thoughts. I look at something, I perceive something to be right or wrong. I have to act on that information. I can never abdicate my perception or my ability to make choices over to someone else in the positive sense or the negative sense, right? So once it, and again, for a lot of people who've grown up in this system, it may just be common sense to them that, of course, we have people who tell us what to do and we have to follow it because if not, there'd be chaos. That's not, first off, I never said to anybody that there is no rules. There's always rules. The question is who's making them? Because I contend we all know certain basic rules inside of us, right? You shouldn't put your hands on anybody else. You shouldn't steal from anybody else. You shouldn't take life that's not yours. I don't need somebody to write this down in a book to tell me that that's right or wrong, right? It's ingrained in me, and obviously, if you've grown up with any kind of a decent family structure or any kind of, even the basics, you're taught these things growing up. So assuming that they're not ingrained in us, most of us are taught these things growing up. So once I'm an adult and can make my own decisions and have the ability to make free choice, I don't wish to have anybody in this realm tell me what I can and can't do unless I'm doing loss, injury, and harm to my fellow man, right? Or I have a contract, which is an agreement with my fellow man that I will perform X, Y, Z. Anything else about regulating my body and my property is unacceptable to me, right? So it's a lifelong journey. It's a process of researching and going deeper into the foundings of these countries and how does it all come about and what is the common law and why is it different from legal process. And then just recently, pretty much over the last year, after probably a decade of going through a lot of different changes and growth and sort of a dark night of the soul, as they say, I started to put this information into action, right? And surrender the outcome.
And the encounter you recorded, was that your first encounter with basically traveling with your property without any registration or so, or have you been doing that before?
Yeah, no, that was the first that was the first moving property, right, on the public roadway. And then, just to kind of circle back a little bit, at some point or on the next show, because I don't really have it here handy, but we can get into the Supreme Court decisions where it's been ruled on, and we can get into the definitions directly from the federal code, just so people don't think that I'm making something up, that this is some kind of, they call it a sovereign citizen movement, which I'm not even sure what that is because it's an oxymoron. You cannot be sovereign. First of all, you can never really be sovereign because my understanding is a sovereign makes laws. I don't make law, right? I don't make universal law and I don't make law in this realm on any level. I follow the law. And a citizen to a degree is a subject. So one can never be a lawmaker and a subject. So we need to start getting our words and terms correct. But yeah, I just wanted to circle back and say that at some point I can give you the official sources for what I'm saying. But as far as that encounter, yeah, that was my first time moving property and being, I guess you could say, interfered with. But in that case, I didn't mind them interfering with me because we had a great conversation, and it created a whole new domain of knowing and action within the internet and within people's lives. So I'm actually grateful for that interruption or interaction.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know your background, but when I generalize and when I look at my history and like the people I've met in my life, uh, yeah, we tend to all grow up with yeah, some kind of obedience to authority. Let's call it that way. Yeah, like
Sure.
authority is above us, right? So, so when I would put myself in your shoes, yeah, I could feel quite some uncomfort and the sense of, yeah, let's call it fear. So did you feel fear like interacting in that way?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think anybody that wouldn't be a little bit fearful in a situation like that probably has something wrong with them. But like on a certain level, it just becomes vibration, right? Like I'm
Okay.
vibrating at a very high level, and I'm aware that there's consequences there, but I'm sort of just not focusing on that and giving that power. I'm in my zone. I'm speaking from the heart. I'm trying to choose my words carefully and also be present and attentive. Um, but yeah, I try not to give too much power and space to that vibration because that's really all the fear is. When you break it down as a sort of vibration, your atoms, your cells, however you want to put it, is just vibrating because it's aware, hey, there's danger here. There's a possibility for something to go wrong. But then, we stay in the energy of, as long as I do everything as loving as I can, as truthful as I can, and show this person what I'm seeing, what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, they can feel the authenticity coming from me. And I again, I surrender that outcome because I have to believe until I'm shown otherwise, that there is power and connectivity there, right? There is a human being in front of me. And now let's not, kid ourselves either. People might think I'm crazy, but I'm not stupid. When it comes right down to it, if they tell me, get out of the car, and I hear it in their voice and I see it in their body language, I'm getting out of the car. You want to put me in handcuffs, you want do whatever you need to do for you to feel safe, right? Because I'm not going to die on the side of the road if I can help it. I'll deal with it and handle it in court and we'll go that way. Because again, what I'm doing is based in truth. I know it's right and I cannot compromise that. So it's not about rebelling, it's not about ego games, it's not about me wanting to, like I said, make up rules or laws. It's about, I understand right from wrong and I'm going to conduct myself in that way. And if I cause any loss, injury, or harm to my fellow man, I will compensate them. Nowhere in that process does there need to be a public servant unless I need one.
And like when you say you surrendered to the situation, like was there an actual worst case outcome? Like because you also mentioned that basically what you were what you were presenting to them, it was based on Supreme Court like rulings, etc. So was there really something to worry about? Because
Oh,
from
absolutely. The worst case
yeah.
scenario is you die on the side of the road.
Okay.
If you really want to get down to it, that is I can't lie to myself or anybody else. You can get shot and you can die or be choked or whatever on the side of the road. I mean, it has happened. It happens all the time. It's not exactly out of the realm of possibility. This is a person, he doesn't know who you are. He's coming up on you on the side of the road. You got no license, plates, insurance, registration. If he's taught that that's normal, right away he's thinking, oh my God, what do we have here? This guy stole a car. He don't want to, if he's in enough fear and he perceives you in a wrong way, he could absolutely pull a gun on you, accidental discharge, or just, you go to reach for something, he thinks you're trying to do something, that's it. So it absolutely is a possibility. But again, I go back to the great spiritual teachings and understandings. If you want to be given everything, you have to give everything up, right? In order to learn how to live, we must learn how to die. And that may sound paradoxical, and in a sense it is, but there is some understanding there. If you want to live fully, you have to surrender the idea that you're in control of how, when, and where you die. All you're in control of is right action or wrong action.
Well, that's very profound. Um, uh, a couple of questions. So you said before that that there was no doubt that you were doing the right thing, right? So that you were expressing your rights in a sense. So and you also said initially that you spent like a decade looking into these topics, like understanding this, integrating that understanding to know what's right and wrong. Or so my question then is: so that's a prerequisite to understand and have that understanding of what is right and wrong, morality, know. In a sense, know yourself and take responsibility for yourself. That's a prerequisite to kind of express your law. Would that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, you have to come to certain basic fundamental truths, I would say. You know, I know that in the new age community, this is a crazy idea, the idea that there is an absolute or objective truth outside of one's own truth, quote unquote, one's own perception, right? So as far as I'm concerned, human beings in this realm are nobody's property, they're nobody's subjects. Just as outlined in the Constitution, we get our rights and our energy or our consciousness, our awareness from God, the universe, whoever, whatever that is. We come directly from that through our parents, and we are born free, as they say. Then at some point, men and women get together, usually groups of men, let's be fair, male ego, dominator, control energy, gets together and is going to decide for everybody what everybody's going to do for everybody's safety. Well, that doesn't work for me, right? So once you come to this basic understanding that not even my parents control me when it gets right down to it, they can advise me. They can tell me, well, if you don't do this, we're going to smack you on the ass and put you in the room for however long. At the end of the day, I have to make the decision to perform or not perform. So everything starts within me and ends within me, regardless of any other external manifestation, condition, or consequence, right? So once you come to that understanding, and that's true responsibility, right? The ability to respond to whatever life puts in front of you, and accountability, the ability to account for why you chose that response, right? So if you make a response in the world or you respond to something, you have to account for why you chose that response. If the answer is fear, then my belief is you're living in cowardice. And that's not a judgment on anybody, that's a definition of the word. A brave individual feels fear, he goes ahead with what's right anyway. He or she goes ahead with what's right and true anyway, right? So by definition, what we have there is a difference between bravery and cowardice, righteousness and evil, right? Evil just means to live backwards. If you look at the spelling, Livevil is live backwards. So when we are not following the God-given, universal-given conscience and consciousness and awareness and truth that is indwelling, we are evil. We are living backwards against the program. We are following the dictates of groups of earthly men, of which change from decade to decade, right? We understand universal law is eternal, it's unchanging, it's based in objective logic, morals, and ethics, all of which can be obtained by an individual who has the ability to apprehend right from wrong, right? Which is a certain level of emotional, mental, and bodily intelligence. So does everyone have that? No. But if we got 1 million people in a room and asked them 10 questions, I would bet that 95, 99% of them would all answer the same way. Like I said before, nobody wants to be assaulted. Nobody wants to be interfered with moving their property if they understand they have that right. Because again, a lot of this is based off misunderstandings and misconceptions about what we believe we have to do and not do. Because again, it comes back to the spiritual understanding of lack of knowledge of self. If you don't know who and what you are, at a fundamental level, then, like they say, if you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything, right?
Well, what a drop of wisdom. Yeah, thank you. um, yeah, a lot of questions. So for me, I've been introduced to natural law last year, so it's not even 1 year ago. But yeah, just over that period of time, it changed my perspective on myself, on reality, quite a bit. And then the thing is also like even if you look just into the legal system, at some point there seems to open this perspective on spirituality, right? It's like a bigger picture to who we are and what's reality. And
the original court, just to touch on that, the
yeah,
original court was held in church, right? So when we go into court and we see behind the magistrate, not the judge, because your fellow man and woman, your jurors, are the judge. That's another misunderstanding. That is a magistrate, an impartial third party who's there to hear the matter and sort of referee it, right? So when we look behind the referee, the magistrate, it says, "In God we trust." So the whole thing, the whole idea, we swear on the Bible, right? You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. It's invoking the idea of we all have to be accountable to something higher and greater than ourselves, right? Something that causes us to do the will rather than our own will, right? True righteousness over ego. So, what we're doing when we do this work, when we step into the court or anywhere else, is we're calling everybody in the room who has ego or not back to the original intent, right? The original purpose, which is to serve your fellow man, to protect your fellow man, to uphold the law given by God, universal law, and to create a space where we can all do that. That's the only function they have, right? It's to prevent us from degenerating as a society. So, yeah, we're essentially, it's a very heavy process, man. You're bringing essentially, I don't even like the term God. You're bringing an energy, a universal law energy that is eternal, unwavering, immutable, cannot be argued with or destroyed in any kind of logical way. You're bringing that into the room and forcing everyone there to be held accountable. And when you speak this as a truth, a conviction from your heart, everyone in the room knows that you live this. This is not an act. This is not a prosecutor or a lawyer coming up and acting as something. This is a man. This is the being in this realm made in the image of the most high consciousness, right? So there's power there. That is the only true power if you really want to get down to it. But I got off on a thing. I don't want to ramble too much.
no, it's super, super interesting. And one of the questions I have, because I mean, I'm living here in Switzerland, and from what I know, the US Constitution is based on common law, as is, I think, the situation in UK, Canada, Australia, and also New Zealand. But here in Switzerland, I believe that the legal system is built on civil law, and you don't have the possibility to hold your own court. And from what I understand, that's possible, like in your country. So when you on the one hand say like it's universal, so it doesn't matter where I am, but on the other side, the legal system still is further away from maybe universal law, depending on where you are and like in terms of country,
Well,
right?
let's
So
be clear that theoretically, conceptually, based on the definitions, yes, you're supposed to in America be able to hold your own court. And by definition, all holding your own court is like when the king used to walk into the courtyard, right? And start to give a speech, start to speak. So I'm holding court on the side of the road, one way or the other. I mean, we're not in a courtroom, right? But I'm holding court because I'm directing the functionaries of the government by the way that I speak, the understanding I'm communicating, the truth I'm revealing. I'm causing them to be compelled to serve, right? So I, like a king, I'm holding court on the side of the road using God's law. So I'm essentially a God king, right? But when it comes to what actually goes on in the court here or anywhere else, you have code, right? Just like I'm sure you have code there. So what we start to um, illustrate or uncover is the idea that we're moving into a code world, right? On the whole, universal, just like law, the universal law is universal and is everywhere at the same time because it is indwelling inside of human beings who possess conscience. The outer world is now encroaching on our inner world because we have not come to bring our inner world in alignment with universal law and manifest that outward, right? Thoughts, emotions, and actions, the sacred trinity. If we align the thoughts, emotions, and actions, we create a kingdom of heaven. We're going into a living hell, right? Because we have not come to do the will rather than our own will. When you create code law as a society and you have everyone following code law, they're blaspheming the Most High, right? They're saying we don't give a, excuse me, we
No, it's
don't
fine. It's fine.
care.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, let's just see a call it has. We don't give a fuck about anything above, higher than ourselves. We're not accountable to anything higher than ourselves. We just know we do these things, and if not, something bad happens to us. You live a life that is fear-based. The universe, the creator, however you want to put it, the truest, balanced, energetic self is a loving energy. It's a loving self. It's a caring energy, right? It cares about right from wrong. If you don't care about right from wrong, and if you don't care about what the law is in this universe, or if there even is a universal law, because you can't see it, feel it, touch it, you don't believe that it's there. If you give up that care, you're a fallen being, right? So now the judgment comes on each society, and you will see a judgment come. It's not about a man in the sky creating it. We are bringing the judgment on ourselves by not observing what is clearly observable here and demonstrable, right? So you guys, at some point, I don't know the history of your country, but I would bet at some point everybody had guns. Everybody sort of had a farm like or fishing like village lifestyle, whatever it is, a nomadic lifestyle. And then at some point, civilization started to become widespread and courts of law, right? And then at some point, I would guess, and you would have to correct me, people lost their firearms ability, right? Or their ability to just buy and sell firearms or possess firearms in the same capacity as the governmental officials. And see, usually in every civilization, when you get to that point, I don't care if it's Mao Zedong, you know, Russia, the proletariat, bourgeoisie. I'm forgetting, I'm drawing a blank right now on that farmers' revolution that they had, or what's going on in Canada or here right now, right, where you have the increased regulation on firearms, where they're making inroads into taking people's ability to defend themselves and to, yeah, I'm going to say it. This is not my words, of course, but the Constitution says alter or abolish government. If government becomes destructive to the benefit of the people, then it must be altered or abolished. Now, again, I'm not advocating for overthrowing government. All I'm saying is that the way that we got here in this country is every man and woman who was able had weapons or weapons nearby that would deter certain tyrannical organizations from taking more of their rights and freedoms. So we are in America in two worlds right now. Make no mistake, we are in code world side by side with common law constitutional world. And if you notice, the masking, the vaccination, the shutting down of people's businesses, the forfeiture of private property, the idea now that guns need to be more regulated, we're going into code world. So make no mistake, America will become, the judgment will come here just like it has come everywhere. And then once it comes to America, the whole world is going to go deeper into a judgment, because America, like it or not, is the last frontier, the last bastion, the final battleground, so to speak, right? I believe if America goes into code world, this world is never going to be the same, right? So yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, and then I don't mean to ramble, but just a real quick, it's kind of like what we talk about in scripture, right? A beast system. The beast system, the matrix, whatever you want to call it. Okay, the matrix is a robotic land where everybody is hooked up to wires, listen closely, hooked up to wires and microchips. And what do robots, cyborgs, androids, Android phone, what do androids, I just lost my train of thought trying to be a smart ass. What do androids run off of? Okay, code. What does computer run off of? Code. So when we have certain men and women here remaking the image of the Most High into their own image, and then telling you have to follow code and putting wires and chips inside of you, we have something bigger going on here, right? On a higher level, what we have here is something that's talked about in scriptures thousands of years ago. We have now the idea of another presence of another set of beings in this reality or on this planet, or however you want to look at it, that is remaking man and woman, mankind, in their own image. Even the idea of mankind, not even really man and woman, mankind, so yeah, it's a deep, heavy story. Like I said, it kind of spans a lot of subjects, but if you go back into the scriptures, this is all talked about, that in the end times, right? It doesn't mean the end of the world, in my understanding. It means the fall of civilizations that then leads up to one great fall of the complete civilization, right? In the mind and spirit of everybody, that then leads into a one world governmental system where everybody is linked through devices, right? The word is device, of vice, bondage. Everybody's linked on that World Wide Web and with the devices inside of them, and then they are ran by code, right? So no longer will you have God-given free choice and the ability to co-create with the universe and commune with the Most High. You will be subverted by a matrix-like system. So I don't know, that's kind of heavy there.
No, it's very good, and I mean, it's something I wanted to ask you anyway. Like, what you see as a bigger picture, what it was currently happening, and you mentioned basically two worlds in parallel, or do you think they can exist in parallel? Is there like a code law and the common law? And like to me, this seems really like I didn't know that common law exists. Yeah, like last year. So with the situation, yeah, basically the craziness, coming to public life last year.
Well, here, let's do it right now, right? You're from where again?
So I'm in Switzerland. Yeah.
Okay, so we never met before. We've never talked before. We don't live in the same land. But
Yeah.
let's find out what the common law is among humans. Would you like it if I walked up and punched you in the face?
No.
Would you like it if I came and took your property?
No.
Would you like it if I came and interfered with your woman when she wasn't around and did something to her? What you see where I'm going here? Because neither would I, right? Everything you just answered no to, neither would I. So funny enough, we didn't need to get together, have a conversation, write something down to figure out what a common law and common lore, LORE, is common understanding. It's being human. But yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Yeah. So that makes sense to me. But what yeah, the thing is, I was in a hypnosis, yeah, like for most of my life. Yeah, I was just like
Sure.
following my robot life in a sense. Yeah, like not really a lot of a human experience. And why I'm saying that, because over the last year, I really came to understand that there's an alternative possible. That there's a way to reclaim your standing as a man, yeah, like above a government, and they turning into your servants, yeah, and changing like authority in a sense, and then also the realization or understanding that basically our legal system is built on that. Yeah, if you look at I mean, the little I know, commercial law, like it is built on choice in a sense. No, it's built on
Sure.
needing consent. Yeah, so if you don't consent, yeah, it can't work. There's no there can't be a contractual relationship then. So you can literally opt out, and so that's my question, because you said two worlds in parallel, and from what the little I understand, that seems very much feasible, because also this let's call it the system, and that's my question to you. Seems to only be existing because we, by free choice, maintain it with our energy.
Well,
so
that's
if,
that. No,
so
I
if
didn't mean to interrupt you.
no,
Go
like,
ahead, go
so
ahead.
if we change our mind, if we wake up and we understand how we consent unknowingly, yeah, and we withdraw that consent and become man, woman, like we are not subject to it anymore.
Well, that's the thing about it, right? Is ironically, code is supposed to be written pursuant to some kind of initial document or whatever, like a charter or a constitution. I highly doubt that anywhere in the founding of your country does it say government reserves the right to do harm to its citizens. So whether or not it does that every day is based on the consciousness of the individuals who make up that government, right? So on one level, we can say, well, government means to control the mind in Latin, right? Gubernare mente. So, it kind of always seems to tend to go that way, right? So I'm kind of on the fence when it comes down to the idea of government, anything outside of the idea of public service. So, but then see, we can also say, there's levels to this, and there's different sides to the argument about what could be or should be. But ultimately, where are we now? We're in a world where government exists everywhere. It might be mind control everywhere, bodily control. However, we all know, and they should know, that that's not what it's supposed to be, and that it's not correct. So by conducting ourselves, and maybe a lot of this is what I want to believe, or because I've gotten results with it in my life, I just believe that everyone can, until I'm proven wrong, I guess. Which I don't think I'll be proven wrong, because even if 10 cops beat me up and put me in jail, it does not invalidate the work that I did with one cop. If he tells me, thank you so much, we needed this has changed my mind. And now, like he did tell me, everyone in the court who's a public servant will serve you. They will not only not interfere with you, but if they do stop you from coming in, then they're going to do your work for you. You see, so by getting those results, that motivates me to keep going, because I know, again, we cannot make this an us versus them thing. We have to create a space where this is a we thing. We are all, Americans, or I was going to say, you said you're in Switzerland, right?
Yeah, I'm in Switzerland. Yeah.
So we are all. What is that considered? Swiss.
Well, Swiss. Yeah. I'm originally from
Yeah.
Germany.
So
Yeah, we're all Germans.
yeah, we are. But we're all countrymen and women. We're all
Yeah.
in this together, as the new cult says, the new normal cult says. We're all in this together, right? But in fact, that is true. We individually are responsible for the collective society that we create. So you just, propose it to them. Do you intend to do harm to a man or woman here today? Is that what your function is as government? You just ask them, are you going to do harm to a man today because of your beliefs, because of what you've written down on paper? Where have I done any wrong to my fellow man or woman? Why am I here today? I have not caused any loss, injury, or harm to my fellow man. Again, even a civil system, I don't know much about the civil and the civili society that dates back to, I believe it's Rome, or whatever it is, Greece, the certain location where the civilis come out of. But I would assume the whole idea of the civilis and civility is there is no discrepancy till there's controversy, and there's only controversy if somebody is causing loss, injury, harm, right, or has a contract and owes a debt. So if this government where you live has degraded to a point where they're acting uncivil, they're writing down codes and forcing them on people who don't want it, and it's causing people loss, injury, and harm, then they are, by definition, going against the original intent of what they were supposed to be, right? And I sometimes I will equate it to people. It's kind of a bizarre equation, but it works for me in a sense. When we talk about the idea of street gangs, right here in America, I don't know if you're familiar with some, but there's some, the Crips, there's Bloods, there's GDs, right? Those are three of the main ones.
Mhm.
Crips originally was Community Revolution in Progress. That's what the acronym was. Bloods was Brotherly Love Overrides Oppressive Destruction. GD was Growth and Development, right?
Mhm.
So original intent, what they call original banging, right? That's the street lingo. The original intent was not about running around causing problems, forcing things on other people, causing harm. That is what it's become. But the original intent was we upkeep the community, we uplift the community, we protect each other, right? We stand in truth together. We defend ourselves if necessary. It was about a community process. It was about keeping police and other elements and beings out of that community because there was corruption, right? So what the original intent is versus what it has become is usually the case in most organizations. Starts out one way and becomes something else because the preponderance of the individuals involved are immoral, do not know right from wrong, and for a paycheck, for a profit, they will do wrong, incorrect behavior, right? And that's the same in government. It's the same in a street gang, if you look at it. Not all street gangs, obviously. I'm just saying the examples that I just gave you based on the words and the understandings as far as what it became, right? And it was for profit for, the lower self reasons, right? Lower vibrational reasons that things that start off as a high vibration become a lower vibration and wind up causing loss, injury, and harm to ourselves and those around us who we started out to help and protect.
Yeah, I was watching the Natural Law seminar by Mark Passio last year,
Sure.
and that was, I think, the first time in my life when I was thinking about what's right or wrong. Yeah, before I was really not thinking much about it. Like, yeah, I was just optimizing for myself, in a sense. Like, what's good for me is
Mm-hmm.
good. What's not good for me is not good. Like, if I don't care for like about the others, like,
Self-service, right?
yeah, it was really self-service, and then I mean, like, quite some things changed over the last years, and then my perspective changed like completely. Yeah, and that's also why I'm really interested to deepen my understanding here and also share this information, because this is really at the core of everything. You mentioned the matrix before, the system. like like from my point of view, this only can exist because there's this little twitch. Yeah, like we don't know what's right or wrong, and we also don't know that we have a free choice actually to and maybe also are responsible for our actions. But if that switch is turned around and you get that, like the whole system is obsolete. No, it's
Yeah, because the only true order, right? The only true control is self-generated, right? I couldn't put enough. If every single being on this planet wanted to do whatever they wanted to do and didn't have an ingrained understanding of right from wrong, let's say everybody wanted to go shoot, rob, steal, kill, you couldn't put enough agents on the street to stop that from happening. Just like the idea of a prison, right? When you go to a prison, there might be how many guards? 10, 20? There could be thousands of prisoners in there. There's certain times when the prisoners could walk out on their own. The only thing truly keeping them in there and under control and orderly at any time is their own individual choice to do so. If they ever individually and together chose something different, that's what would happen, right? So again, this idea that humans are inherently bad, inherently evil, I don't subscribe to that. They need to be governed, they need to be controlled. I don't necessarily subscribe to that. I believe people generally want to do good. And I believe people generally, if given the opportunity to succeed and build something, some wealth and some resources for themselves and for their family and their community, generally, there's not too much crime that goes on. Now, interestingly enough, I can't speak on it necessarily firsthand. What I would suspect is The individuals who have too much and have had too much for too long at the expense of everyone else, they're the ones most likely doing the heinous things, you know. Like they say, absolute power corrupts absolutely. So we're given this image and this idea of what evil is, right? Some guy on the corner who's robbing somebody for a few dollars, somebody who does something in the throes of a compulsion or a mental or emotional illness, but not people who on a large scale engineer and organize genocides of hundreds of thousands of people, who traffic in the bodies and souls of men and women and children. And again, not to put a blame or an onus that, oh, the whole world is controlled by a certain group of people and they're the reason. Absolutely not. This is generated, again, starts with the individual and goes outward. The public, the masses, get the rulers, or the co-creators that they deserve. So if you want to act like a subject, you want to submit to everything out of fear, you like to be controlled because you believe it creates order, you will manifest slave masters. And that's what we have now, right? So again, to kind of circle back to, I think, what you originally had asked, there is no such thing as uh, governance actually and control actually. It's a process where fear is used to direct the individual from inside out. The same individual could be directed from inside out using love and care, right? I don't need to be feared into not doing wrong. I need to care about myself, the truth, and what's right, and my fellow man to not do wrong to them. See, it's about a perceptual switch where you come into godliness and righteousness rather than being in the world and of it. Because again, if you're operating from a fear space, and you can never truly know yourself and never truly love and never truly have control over who and what you are and your destiny, because you're always operating from a fear space.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And like, from what I understand, also that there's a lot of engineering, yeah, to cause guilt, like fear, shame, and suppress anger. In a sense, so that we really don't maybe stand up also and claim our rights. And what would you recommend to someone who like wants to work this through and wants to express their rights? And is there a process to it, or what has been your process? Like, is it studying, is it reading, is it like inner work? Like, is there like, are there resources you can recommend, or is it like what's your suggestion? I also know that like you're about to build a platform and educate others. So like how do you approach that? How do you educate about that?
I mean, really, the best education, right? Like they bring us into the schoolroom and they sit us down and hand us a paper and they start to teach us with words rather than experiences and direct understanding, right? So I try to use my videos on YouTube and what I co-create, good, bad, ugly, however you want to look at it. I put it out authentically what goes on, and then I let the results speak for themselves. And then people come to me, right? Because like they say, build it and they will come. So when people see me getting responses rather than reactions from public servants, when they see public servants being compelled to do what's true and what's right, when maybe in the beginning they didn't want to, they understand that there's power there. So that's where the educating and the teaching comes, is anything that you truly should be able to teach. I know they say those who can't do teach, but I don't necessarily agree with that. If you can't do and show me what you're trying to teach, I don't necessarily want to hear from you. And I think a lot of people are in that position now where they've been taught so many things by people throughout their lives who necessarily could not do. when push comes to shove, they've revealed themselves to be people of lesser character. They're now saying, well, we're not interested in the degree, the status, the title, the income. We want to see the results. Who are you? What are you? You know, what do you have to give us and show us? Those are the people who are truly ready to learn and go to the next level. So I do that. And I do it in my own life to show that this is not disingenuous. This is authenticity at its best. I'm putting myself on the line. I'm willing to go to jail and die for what I know is true and what I believe in. Doesn't mean I don't feel fear, but how else would you learn unless I showed you? So now that I've showed you, you know, it kind of opens up that perspective and that perception to that new sort of ability in that world. And then the universe kind of takes over, right? Because now you got that thing inside of you, that charge, like they say, we're going to put a charge on you. Well, I'm going to put a charge on you, right? An electrical charge. And now you're going to carry that around and it's going to influence you, right? Like planting a seed. That seed is going to sprout and it's going to grow into something and it's going to be part of your journey. There is no necessarily rubric. Oh, watch this guy do this, do this. It's a journey, right? And you're on it. Once that spark happens and you're made aware, oh, this is who and what we are. This is what we do have an ability to do. Yeah, there could be consequences, but is it worth it? You know, at some point, you're going to have to ask yourself in life, are certain things worth possibly getting hurt or dying for? Because if we don't stand on them, we're going to get hurt and die anyway. It's kind of this like circular logic, right? If you don't do what needs to be done, which could cause you to be hurt and die, you're going to be hurt and die because that's the nature of this reality. Um, we go through these revolutions, right? Complete circles. That's what revolve means, revolution, to complete circle. We need resolution, right? We have the tools now, we have the understanding, we have the ability. We've had them for thousands of years. I mean, if you want to get down to it, but in this new age of media sharing, information sharing, the ability for people all over the world to watch individuals like myself and others do this work on ourselves, repent, change our life and our ways 180 degrees from who we used to be, and now serve something that is higher and greater than ourselves. They see the power and fulfillment in that. They see that it's what needs to be done right now by everybody, you know, because we are all on this journey together with the same self, trying to discover deeper and truer knowledge of self, right? And how to conduct ourselves in this world to co-create a desirable outcome, right? A kingdom of heaven in quotes, as they say.
Wow. Yeah. I have the feeling you're sparking quite quite a little bit.
Put that charge on you, man. I'm talking to your spirit. I'm touching your spirit.
And yeah, so like how is your is like when you get up in the morning, like okay, today I manifest a police encounter, or like how do you approach that? Is it that you intend to to bump into someone and to kind of learn and educate, or is it just like whatever comes your way? Is it something you're kind of like pushing the boundary, or is it just like in a sense naturally occurring because that's in your focus anyway?
Well, I mean, obviously, if in the instance where, I was taking my property on the roadway, um, you're obviously aware that by not having a plate, that the likelihood is very
Yeah.
high that you're going to be stopped and have to have a conversation. So I can't claim that I didn't know that that was coming. I just understood that that's what's necessary if I want to um, cement this right? If I want to uphold this right and what's been ruled on by the Supreme Court many times, if I want to engage in that right, well, then I'm going to have to engage in it and I'm going to have to surrender the consequence and the outcome. In other instances, I don't typically go around looking for things. However, there are certain times where I will get in a certain space where I will say, you know, I'm pretty much always on when it comes to that. If I'm out and about and a situation presents itself, if I see public servants who stop somebody on the side of the road, first of all, as my fellow countrymen, I have a duty and an obligation to render aid, right? That's like there are certain laws of the land that to me are more important because, again, they're based in the spiritual universal law and the commonality understanding that I am my brother's keeper. So just like I would want somebody to stop for me and record me having an interaction with public servants because they have been known, certain ones of them, to be a little excessive at times, let's say. So just like I'd want people to stop and record me and hold them accountable and hold me accountable as well. That's fine. If I get out of the car and start shooting and fighting, they're going to get it 10 different ways on video camera, put me away forever. So I want everybody held accountable in the situation. So I do the same for others, right? Because again, that's what we need to do if we, again, treat others how you'd want to be treated. And again, do what you know is true and what's right. So when I see a public servant stopping someone, and I can usually tell just by I can oftentimes tell by where it is in town, the street, what type, what's going on, the energy around it, the time of day, how the officer is parked, how many officers are there, who the individual is they're stopping. I can make a good determination on pretty much what's going on. And then obviously I'll walk up and ask, what's going on here today? And then usually they'll be put off or whatever. But hey, you're a public servant. I'm out here making sure that everything is above board, that you're doing with our money what you're supposed to be doing. Again, not that I consider myself a member of the public per se, but the money is being collected and being used to serve my fellow man and woman. And I'm not interested in the whole citizen game and corporation game. As far as I'm concerned, these are men and women around me who have jobs and they've made an agreement to pay the government so that the government can serve the people. Right. So when I'm out and about, I make sure that I stop, I have a hot conversation with them. How's it going, fellas? What's going on here? And then I just see if there's no issue, if they're not doing anything wrong, like they say, if you have nothing to hide, you're not doing anything wrong, what's the problem? Just tell me, well, we're just stopping this guy. He made a wrong turn, whatever. We're seeing what's up. Okay, no problem. Once they go into something other than that, now it's time for us to have a deeper conversation, right? Because I have a right, if you're on my roadways, I have a right to know what you're doing stopping my fellow man. I have a right to ask, even if you don't want to tell me, well, I'd rather not talk about it right now. There's a way to go about it. But if you turn to me and you start acting like, you're above me, you're better than me, you're going to be threatening towards me, you're not going to answer to me. Well, I'm going to tell you, you are going to answer to me. And then I'm going to ask you for identification because you're required to identify yourself to any member of the people in the course of your duty, right? So then we just start going down the checklist and reminding them, who exactly do you think you are? Who do you think I am? And then if it gets to a certain point, we'll figure it out in court, right? We'll go to court and we'll let a judge, a magistrate, see, we have to get it straight. We'll let a jury of my peers and a magistrate refereeing decide what you have a right to do and not do, right? And what I have a right to do and not do. Because I'm pretty sure there's no law anywhere saying that I can't stop if an officer is doing whatever he's doing. I can't stop and from 6 feet away ask him, hey, how's it going, what's going on, need any assistance here or whatever, because I also am upholding law, right? I have a duty and responsibility in my country to uphold the law and to render aid. So I don't know if I answered your question there, but
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm curious, have you been arrested? Like, have you been to court?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, I have videos up there where I've been arrested. I've been arrested at least 2 times in the last 6 months. Right now, I have a matter that I have to, with trespassing, quote unquote, trespassing for not wearing a mask and not turning off my camera. So we have another hearing for that on the 24th, I believe. But I'm in the process of filing federal lawsuit, right? So I do have to actually go down and recheck on that because I put in the paperwork and I haven't heard anything about that. And they were supposed to contact me, but I'm trying to bring this local matter into a federal court and have a federal magistrate hear this case because I believe that what they're doing is a deprivation of rights under color of law, right? Which is actually a federal code. So there are federal codes along with the Constitution that outline that no agent or agency is supposed to use any law, statute, code, policy to interfere with my rights. It's my right, I believe, to access the people's courthouse. It's my right to be able to breathe free, to breathe fresh air and not be subjected to a forced medical procedure of wearing a mask. It's my belief that I have a right to record my everyday life out in the public and my interactions, not only to document my life, but for my safety and security, right? So we're just gonna have a federal judge hear this case, magistrate, excuse me, a federal magistrate hear this case, and we'll let them decide that a public servant, agent and agency who's in the courthouse, who's supposed to be working for me in my house, right? The people's courthouse, it's my house. I have a claim to it. We'll let them decide that they have a right to tell me what I can and can't do with my face, my camera, my property. And I don't believe that they're going to be able to substantiate that.
When you're arrested, is that like a matter of a few hours, or like is this like how long can like authorities keep you like in such a situation? Is that like open end or like whatever?
I mean, I could sit here and tell you what the book says, what I've experienced.
Okay.
I could sit here and tell you, what other people have experienced. I mean, the bottom line is I go into the saying they could keep me forever, and that's a scary thought, obviously, but I rather go with the most scary proposition and become comfortable with that to whatever level I can, rather than to try to hope for the least, right? Because the reality of it is, I don't know. I mean, what I've experienced and what what the rubric says is probably, anywhere from 48 hours. And then again, anything can happen in between, man. If, let's just say, and again, I'm not saying that this happens on a mass level. I don't know what level it happens at, but I'm sure it happens to some degree somewhere. Let's just say I'm arrested that day for trespassing, for not wearing a mask and whatever else. And when they go to put me in that cell, rather than put me in there for an hour or two, they find drugs on me, right? That I didn't have. Somebody just says they found it on me, or, they claim that I assaulted somebody, or somebody goes to assault me because they don't like how I talk or how I look. And I fight back and they say I assaulted a police officer. With charges like that, if you get into a certain court, certain judges, it might put you away for 90 days, 9 months, 9 years. I don't know, but again, if I was to think about that end of it and I was to focus on that and give that power, I probably wouldn't do anything that I'm doing, because I have to trust and believe that the way that I conduct myself, every individual knows I'm not a being who intends to do harm. I'm not a being who is coming anywhere with wrong or bad intentions. I'm trying to stand for what I believe is true, which I believe is a respectable, admirable quality. And I would hope that any other man or woman in this realm would take notice of that and respect that, and that they would not want to do harm to me. Because again, I try not to challenge anybody in their quote unquote authority. I try to just reveal to them who and what I am and what I believe. And I try to back it with written, documented truth in the form of the Constitution and rulings from the Supreme Court.
Yeah. And when you are at court, like you just said, you're bringing this to federal court. Like like your counterpart at court doesn't necessarily know how to present their case or like argue in front of a magistrate, right? It's very different.
You mean?
Huh?
You mean like for somebody else, or when you say counterpart, like
I mean you like
the
counterpart, like
prosecutor?
no, like I don't know the exact situation, but like let's say you're bringing the police, you're holding them accountable in front of the court.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so
So
they don't necessarily know the situation, right? They don't know the situation in front of a magistrate, right?
From what was the last word you said? From a magistrate?
Because you also mentioned there's a difference between magistrate and judge, right? So
Okay, yeah. Well, see, what it comes back to is, right, how they say only God can judge me. The idea of judgment, in a sense, can never be done by man and woman in this realm, the closest thing that you come to is a jury of your peers. So we get 12 people together, right? Because they're supposedly everyone's, created equal in this realm. Now, there's levels to that, right? Because while we all are created equal and should afford the same process and protection, we are all not equal in the sense of perception. So that's why it needs to be a jury of your peers, because 12 people have to be able to come in and reasonably determine, well, what is going on here? What is legal versus lawful? What is this man trying to say, right? So that's the closest thing we can ever get to judge in this realm, is 12 of our fellow men and women coming in and saying, we believe this man is bad, or he's done wrong, or we believe there's a misunderstanding here. We don't want anything. Well, the jury reserves the right to interpret the law, to apply the law however they want. My understanding is, say, let this man go. We don't want anything done with him. So that's the closest thing we can get to a judge outside of God. A magistrate is essentially a referee. He's there as an impartial individual to kind of keep everything in play, like on the court when we're having the competition. If the ball goes out of bounds, the referee's there to say, oh, it's off the court. That's out of bounds, whatever. But again, it has to be based on what's true and correct, not on some form of legal civil procedure where there's rules. You can't tell the truth like that right here. You have to tell over there like that. Don't fly with me, right? It's just simply, we're getting in a room, we're having everybody speak to the world what their side is, and then we're going to let everybody in the tribe, right? 12 members of the tribe are going to decide, the human family, did this man do wrong, or was he right in what he was doing? So, yeah, I don't know if I answered what you were trying to.
Yeah, and that also means that there is no lawyer, right? Like representing you or like police officer, but it's you speaking for yourself, and that's possibly also for someone who like has never done that or thought about that, like I imagine the police, like they cannot hide behind a lawyer, right? They have to represent themselves there, right? So it's a very
well, that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
The word represent is different from present. So
Okay.
You are going to have to present yourself, right? Present your case, present your testimony of the firsthand knowledge of what went on that day, right? Because every court proceeding has an event where something took place, there was a controversy. So when someone tries to show up with a lawyer right away, they should be told that lawyer can't speak because he has no firsthand knowledge of what took place. What he's saying is hearsay, and it's it's not admissible. The individual has to come forward and explain, testify, firsthand knowledge before God and the world, what they saw, what they experienced, under penalty of perjury, right? If we find out, we catch you lying, we're gonna put you in jail. So yeah, I mean, anytime you bring a case forward, it should be done humbly, with humility, and straight to the point, and understanding that if you tell a lie or anything you say is incorrect, it's very serious. The idea of testify comes from, my understanding of testify comes from testicles, when a man would come into court and hold his testicles when he would give his testimony, right? And if he was found to be lying, they'll cut off his testicles. So what we're essentially saying there is your manhood, right? Like Scarface said, all I have is my balls and my word, right? I don't break them for nobody. So the idea here is a man is always honorable and accountable and does not act in bad faith, does not lie, especially in open court under oath to God, right?
Yeah, wow. Yeah, such a great conversation. And yeah, we're already more than 1 hour, so I want to be appreciative of your time, and maybe at some point we can have another conversation. That's up to you. It would be a true pleasure.
Sure.
Is there something else you want to share with our listeners?
I mean, we think we did a pretty good span, covered a pretty good breadth of information at this point. But like you said, man, I mean, there's always more time. We can always come back and talk again if you want to open up comments to folks. Maybe we can do live comments, question and
Mm.
answer next time, or if people, you know, respond to this and they have something that they want touched on a little bit more or go more in depth with, we could do that.
Oh yeah, that would be great. And of course, I will add your information, your YouTube channel, and the comments, etc. So in the show notes, so that that the listeners, everybody, can check you out and get educated, and so that their spark is also lit up.
Sure.
Yeah. Dear Paul, thank you very much for taking the time and sharing this incredible information with us, and
No
really
problem.
inspiring us for getting some courage and like and speaking our truth. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Sure, Simon. I enjoyed it, man. I appreciate
Yeah.
you, bud.
True pleasure. Thank you very much.